This is Noreen, and here we are at the Ayurveda Cafe. And this evening, I have a wonderful guest, Jim Pace. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you for having me again.
Awesome.
Noreen.
Yeah, and Jim is joining us. This is the third week, and he's going to continue his discussion about Vaidya Mishra, Ayurveda, SV Ayurveda, all things Prana. So welcome. Jim will take the floor, and then we'll have some time for questions, and we'll take it from there. Welcome.
Hello, this is Jim Pace from Fairfield, Iowa, talking tonight about Shakavansha Ayurveda. Should I move Noreen a little more to the center, perhaps?
I think you're
fine. Okay. This is our third installment, if you will, to discuss and share wonderful gems of wisdom that I had the privilege of learning over many years of studying with Vaidya Mishra. I've already introduced Vaidya Mishra in his background in the previous two videos, or two sessions. And tonight I'd like to share with you a little bit about how his way of practicing and approaching Ayurveda and health and healing diverges to some extent from what he would call contemporary Ayurveda or mainstream Ayurveda. As mentioned previously, he comes from an ancient lineage which has practiced Ayurveda continuously for over 5,000 years, and we call that pure Ayurveda or Shuddha Ayurveda. And his specific way of practicing that pure Ayurveda is called Shakavansha Ayurveda. Shaka means was an island, and we don't know exactly where it is. Some people think it's Iran area, some people think it's Madagascar, possibly, but it's an ancient land called Shakad, and there were a class of Brahmins called Shakadvipa Brahmins who lived there and were sun worshippers, and they had great knowledge of astronomy and Vedic astrology and herbs and literally everything that has to do with nature. And they were invited to come to India thousands of years back to treat Lord Krishna's son. His name was Sam, who had leprosy. And they were renowned for their healing power. In fact, it is said that Vaidya Mishra's ancestors were the three wise men that came to Jesus. They were called Mag Brahmins, and they were also part of that tradition. As the lore would have it, they're part of it. He belongs to that lineage. So his way of doing Ayurveda is very specialized. It doesn't go against anything that Ayurveda today is taught. Basically, it complements and supplements contemporary Ayurveda. And what do I mean by contemporary Ayurveda? You see, Ayurveda is very ancient, but it's not been practiced in the ancient way in the last 150 years, basically, because we could say that today's Ayurveda is basically an Ayurveda that's been practiced in the last 100 years or so. When India got independence, this is what Dr. Mishra told me, they needed lots of Ayurvedic physicians, so they built schools and training curriculums to teach Vaidyas. And they made medicines that could be stored for a long time, could be exported, could be shipped from one end of the country to the next end of the country, things that had a long shelf life. But that's not the way Ayurveda used to be done. It used to be more personal, where the village Vaidya would, select his own herbs and make his own medicines. And it was just more of a connection with nature type of Ayurveda, as opposed to formally going to school for 6 years like Vaidyas do today to get their Ayurvedic degree. And Vaidya Mishra, by the way, he did get his Ayurvedic degree. And then he studied with his father, who did not go to formal Ayurveda college. But his father was a master. And Vaidya Mishra once said, growing up, I had no idea how genius my father was. Until I studied the internship with him after my formal education for 7 years. And then I learned just how much our lineage had to offer. He said, I thought I knew everything about Ayurveda. I had my degree, I wanted to practice, but his father said, no, not yet. Now you study with me for 7 years. And he did, and then he said, at one point my father said, I have to unteach you what they taught you in the Ayurveda college. Of course, formal education is important, but also that one-to-one relationship with someone who lives and breathes that knowledge is also very important. And that's what he had with his father, who had that with his father, stretching back 5,000 years. And this is called Shaka Vanshya Ayurveda. Most of these practitioners are settled in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, mainly in north and northeast India. That's where most of these Shaka Dvipa Brahmins are. Because Vaidya is not the only family. There were 10 families that came over to India from Shaka Island. So tonight's topic is about what's different about some of the main points that are different about his way of practicing Ayurveda. But before that, I want to go back to last week. We were talking about 3Sutra Ayurveda. It's called Tri, Sutra Ayurveda. And it is also one of the things that is different in his way of practicing Ayurveda versus a lot of Ayurveda that we see today. A lot of times in Ayurveda today, and I'm not saying everyone, but many times people will go to an Ayurvedic practitioner, and sometimes the practitioner will have an idea that as soon as they hear a symptom, I have this, and I have this to offer for that symptom, rather than taking the time and having the knowledge that they need to find out why the person has that symptom first, which is the first part of 3Sutra Ayurveda. Basically, 3Sutra Ayurveda says, Hetu Linga Aushadhi Jnanam. And my Sanskrit is poor, but Hetu means the symptom, or rather the cause, the etiological factor. Linga means the sign, the symptom. And Aushadhi means medicine, but it also means not just pills, though, the total therapy. That's the Aushadhi. And Gyan means the knowledge of the Hetu, again, etiological factor, knowledge of the signs and symptoms related to that etiological factor. And thirdly, what medicines will address those signs and symptoms related to those specific etiological factors for that specific person. So as soon as somebody says, I have constipation, you don't want to say, oh, I'll have triphala for that. Well, maybe triphala is great, but maybe the problem is connected that the mind and the colon are not connected to each other. A lot of mental stress, too much thinking, taking energy away from the colon area. So the mind and the enzymatic system and the eliminatory systems are not connected. So that could be a Hetu for constipation. Could be simple as person not drinking enough water. Could be they're eating a lot of cheese, high fat, high protein foods like steaks. It could be they're not exercising enough, they're not moving their body as a Hetu. It could be that there's an obstruction in the colon, a more serious condition, but that's one possibility. And the point is, with every signs and symptoms of a specific person, you have to look to the causes first. It's not enough just to recommend something without understanding what's causing that thing. Because if you don't take away the cause, you're still stuck with the problem. The symptomatic relief may be there, but it won't be there for long, because the causal factor is always there. And of course, sometimes taking away the cause doesn't stop a disease. Somebody smoked 50 years, they've got lung cancer diagnosis, they can stop smoking today. It's not going to, they need it, of course they have to stop smoking, but that's not in itself going to change the lung cancer. So, because there's a principle called hetu vipreet. Vipreet means against, or the opposite of. So if you're eating, you're dehydrated because you don't drink enough water, then you drink more water. It's very simple. You just say, drink more water, you'll be fine. So Ayurvedic is very simple and can be very complex. But the 3Sutra Ayurveda came to us from the Charak Samhita, and actually it's recorded in the Charak Samhita, but it came from Lord Brahma, who taught it to the rishis. Ayurveda, we say, is God-made knowledge, not man-made knowledge. So it came from the creator of the universe. And Vaidya used to say, who is better to tell us how to take care of that, the machine, than the person who created it? And that would be Lord Brahma. So he taught this 3Sutra Ayurveda to the rishis. And Vaidya would say, if you don't know 3Sutra Ayurveda, some people don't that say they practice Ayurveda, then you will do an incomplete Ayurveda. You will not do complete Ayurveda. You will say, oh, you have a headache, take this. You have a stomach, take this, without going into the detail of their problem, the person's problem, the patient's problem. So again, hetu is the etiological factor. That's the first part of this sutra. And so basically you have to know which etiological factor is there for a particular person and how that etiological factor is creating imbalances, and how these imbalances become the purva-rupa, which are the pre-disease conditions, and how that pre-disease condition, the purva-rupa, if you don't take care of that, then how they become an established disease. So linga, again, means the symptom or the sign. So you have to have the wisdom of the hetu, you have to have the wisdom of the symptoms related to those hetus, and then you have to have the wisdom of all the possible medicines and therapies related to that hetu for that person's symptoms. Like Vaidya would say, I have 250 herbs in my inventory, but I can't give everybody 250 herbs. I have to narrow it down. He would say, I have to hit the bullseye. This is why they have the problem related to these signs and symptoms, and this is what I have that will address this person's problem. But he always said that, always I give something general, like he has a general diet, and I always give something specific. Some things are general for everyone. Go to bed on time, drink good water, eat good food, don't skip or delay your meals. Again, these are for everyone, and then there's always something specific for that person. And so I mentioned that there's a hetu vipreet chikitsa. Chikitsa means treatment. Really, it means how to take care of that specific disease-causing factor or imbalance-causing factor. So what is hetu vipreet, which means opposite of? Like if somebody doesn't get enough sleep, well, simply you have to, with your wisdom, with your skill, convince them to get more sleep, not to be up at midnight. Because people will definitely do things, even things they know are bad for them, they'll still do them due to habits, due to restless mind, due to EMF bombardment, watching the video at 10 p.m. rather than going to bed, turning it off early. They will go against their own wisdom. So it's up to the Vaidya to help remind them of their own wisdom. Because a lot of these things, are very common sense. And say somebody didn't sleep because they ate a lot of red chili in the evening or during the day. They got a lot of agni, a lot of fire, when they need more lunar energy to help themselves sleep. So they need to stop eating the red chilies. They need to eat more somogenic, cooling, nurturing foods, such as yellow squashes and zucchinis and juicy fruits, milk, ghee. Then you have, now this is very interesting what he says about linga viprit chikitsa, taking care of the symptom. So first was taking care of the cause. Now this is to take care of the symptom. So if somebody got a headache, they ate bad food, deep fried food, and they have a pain in their stomach, then you can't just say, okay, don't eat bad food, because now they have a stomachache. So it's already there. So you can't just say, you're not going to take care of it by saying don't eat bad food. You have to take care of the current problem, which is stomachache. So they could say, yes, I'm not going to eat the same food tomorrow, but I have a pain now. That sort of thing. So that's called linga viprit chikitsa, opposite of the symptom. And for that, again, it would depend upon why they have a stomachache. Maybe they should fast for the rest of the day, or maybe they should take some herbs that are antacid in nature. It would depend on what kind of stomachache they have. And lastly, we have something called the vyadi. Vyadi means disease, and vyadi viprit means, vyadi actually means identified disease, something that's like he likes to say it's been capped, it has a name, it's an identified disease. Like if somebody has tuberculosis or cancer, or whatever it may be, that's a capped disease. And Ayurveda actually talks about those diseases. In ancient times, they knew every modern disease, they have a name for it, basically. So even for a specific disease, our Ayurveda has specific therapies for specific diseases, not just general lifestyle recommendations, that sort of thing, not just general dietary recommendations, but they have specific modalities for specific diseases in Ayurveda. So you have to know the disease process. At a later course, we'll talk about the disease process, which is the 6 stages of pathogenesis. Stage 1, very mild, very easy. Not even disease. You can't call it disease. Not until stage 5 is it considered to be a disease. But basically it goes from bad to worse. So the rest of the sutra, we had Hetu Linga Aushadhi Jnanam. Second word is called Swastatu Parayanam. Swasta means self. Atu means who is desperate to get health. So people come to a practitioner who are desperate to get health, and they want it now. So the sutra says, if you know these 3 factors of the 3 sutra that we just mentioned, you become parayan, which means you become the master. Parayan means a real master, the real knowledge, the real Vaidya who can take care of all the people who come to him or her to get healthy. And the second half of the sutra says, ThreeSutram, which means the sutra we just mentioned, and Sasvatam, which means it's eternal. This 3-Sutra Ayurveda is eternal knowledge. And it goes further to say, Punyam Bubudhi Yam Pitamaha, which means when you teach, when you follow, or you hear this sutra, it's good karma. It's punya. Just to teach it, just to hear it, just to share it, and to practice it. Practice it, of course, is the best karma. That's punya, which means it's anti-sin. It gets rid of your sins. So when you discuss this, or you're listening to this, you're getting rid of some of your sin according to the sutra. Punya, because it's pure knowledge, always true, always will be true. You can't challenge the knowledge. So that's ThreeSutra Sasvatam Punyam. It's very auspicious. Then the last three words of this verse is Bubudi Yam Pitamaha. Pitamaha means Lord Brahma. Actually, it means grandfather or great, 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 great grandfather. It means like that kind of Pitamaha. It means you're like your greatest great grandfather, which is Lord Brahma. And Bubudi Yam means as taught by Lord Brahma, who created us, who created herbs, who created spices, who created heaven, stars, the five elements, the pranic energy, who created everything. So that's who brought us ThreeSutra Ayurveda. So Vaidya Mishra says we should always keep this ThreeSutra Ayurveda in mind whenever we practice. Never stray from ThreeSutra Ayurveda. Don't automatically decide what you're going to do without going into the details of what you're going to do and why you should do it. He says when you practice ThreeSutra Ayurveda, it's like a lifelong guidance and you cannot make a mistake if you follow this ThreeSutra Ayurveda. So it's very important sutra to know and to learn. And it's not the simple Ayurveda that is many people practice, but I think you can understand that if you know what the ideological factors are, if you know how they relate to the person's signs and symptoms, and you understand all the different ways you can address that ideological factor, it will help you as a practitioner to practice your Ayurveda more effectively. So that's a wrap up of ThreeSutra Ayurveda. And now I want to go into SVA, or Shakavansha Ayurveda, vis-a-vis mainstream Ayurveda. And again, ThreeSutra Ayurveda is one of those things that I've noticed that is different in his way of practicing Ayurveda. When I first met him, I had studied with other teachers, and I learned a lot, no doubt, but after 2 years with him, I looked at him one day and I said, Vaidya, a patient had just left my office, and he was seeing patients in my home office, and I said, I thought I knew Ayurveda before I met you. And he laughs. He says, you know more than most people, but you don't have the confidence. Because he was so skilled in how he handled each and every individual. Everybody was unique when they saw him, even with the same condition. So first thing, what is the main difference? The main difference here is, was it in week one, Noreen, that we talked about the prana, or last week?
I think you touched on it on week one, but last week was more detailed.
So in last week's lecture, or talk, it's not a lecture, we learned that prana is the cosmic energy that supports us from conception, gestation, through our birth and growth, and till we die, basically. At the end of our life, prana leaves the body, but prana is always there, is the eternal cosmic energy. And this is why understanding prana is a very important part of the Shakavansha Ayurveda tradition, which was orally maintained for centuries before it was textually compiled in the Charak Samhita. So you will see in SVA there is a lot more emphasis on understanding of prana, the source of prana, the resources of prana, how it travels in the body and from the subtle body to the physical body, how the pranic energy from the environment, from the outside, interacts with the internal aspects of the body, what kind of pranic changes happens in the different seasons. For example, in summer, when the sun is closer to us, there's much more Agni, pranic, because I mentioned 3 aspects of prana, 3 component, Agni, Soma, Marut. There's more Agni in the environment, and therefore we have to change our diet and our lifestyle to adapt to the different pranic energy that's more predominant at that season of summer. Because if you don't, you're going to have all sorts of heat-related disorders if you don't adapt to the increased pranic Agni aspect. And the winter, you have a lot more soma, lunar energy, and deep winter. And at that time, you have to take other precautions. You can't eat the same diet, and obviously you don't wear the same clothes. That's very simple. But you have to change your diet and some of your habits. And a lot of that's, again, is due to the different predominance of pranic energy. Where there's more Agni, there's more Soma. Now we're going into fall, there's more Marut energy, circulating etheric energy in nature, which is manifested outwardly as more wind, more dryness, more subtle vibrational effect in the environment. So again, each season has a different pranic energy. And they will affect us differently, physically, emotionally, mentally, and sensually or sensory, and spiritually. So the proper understanding of prana is central to our health. And we have several ways we address it. Our diet is primary, of course. But in addition, how we eat is important. Do we eat while we're driving? Do we eat while we're studying? Do we eat settled? Do we eat junk food? Do we eat at the wrong time of day? Do we skip a meal? All these things are related to our pranic energy. All our habits are related to our pranic energy. So, in a nutshell, Shakavansha Ayurveda it differs greatly from the vata, pitta, kapha approach of contemporary Ayurveda, which can be complicated enough as it is, and is very important, no doubt. But we have to know that what sustains our life is prana. What keeps us healthy is prana. It's more fundamental than the dosha. We talked about that last week, how the doshas come from prana. So prana is, according to Vaidya Mishra, nature's power, God's power. And he would say, what more do you want? That's God's power. And so he says, everything I do in my practice of Ayurveda is all about enhancing the reception, the flow, and delivery and interaction of prana with the physiology and the mind and the senses. So again, it's how do we enhance the reception, flow, delivery, and interaction of prana within us from outside ourselves? Because I did mention that prana comes from the environment, but prana also comes from the light of our own soul. It's the soul that keeps us alive, number one. Soul leaves the body, prana, the aura. We say the soul has a light. We call that the sattva. The prabha, actually, the soul has a light, which is the sattva. It has an aura, and the prana is in the aura of the light. The light of the gem. We call the gem the soul is like a gem that gives out light. And prana rides on that light and interacts with our body. It keeps us alive. When prana goes, soul goes, aura goes, prana goes, life goes. Just matter there. There's no aura. The aura of the light of the gem is what interacts with the environment to receive more prana. So first we say the soul is number one that keeps us alive, the light of the soul and the prana that's with it, and that interacts with the environment to take in more prana from the food, from the water, from the air. So prana, again, is not simply something we get from breathing, and prana is not just breath. Prana is our ability to breathe. It's the ability to breathe. That's life. It's life. So SVA is all about increasing the life intelligence, the life force. I don't like the word life force because it's more than that. It's more than type of energy. It is life itself. And that creates the elements, they create the doshas. Doshas govern the body. So pranic energy is paramount in Shakavansha Ayurveda. So that's number one. That's the number one thing you'll see different in his way of approaching Ayurveda. And he developed many, many strategies to help us with that. He developed 700 products, and we call them intelligent herbal synergies because they capture the prana of the plant and they maintain the prana without preservatives, because when you use preservative in anything, you kill the prana, you destroy it. That's why every one of his herbal remedies was made to retain the original pranic intelligence of the ingredients. But let's go into more detail about now that we understand what prana is and how important it is for health, let's go into more details about the SVA lineage. Number one, the SVA lineage holds a complete understanding of the holistic relationship between the physical and the vibrational body. And it has a complete understanding of the vibrational communication between the universe and the physical body. Because we take in prana at every moment. Every instant we're receiving and using prana. And so we have to understand how the physical body is in communication with the vibrational body. And SVA has that understanding. And it understands how the vibrational body impacts the physical body. And of course, we have to understand physical nourishment. We have to understand the pranic nourishment, but we also have to understand the physical level of nourishment. For example, he likes to use this example that, like the brain, for the brain to function, we take care of the vibrational intelligence of the brain, but still you have to feed the brain. Good fat, intelligent fat, good protein. The brain has its own physical needs, and the whole body does. You have to have good calcium. Your bones need intelligent calcium. And why do so many people, especially women later taking the calcium supplements, still they have bad, brittle bones? It's dumb calcium. It's not intelligent calcium. The body doesn't want it. It doesn't use it properly because it's a dumb calcium. So we have to understand nourishment on the physical level. We have to have a certain amount of, vitamins and minerals. Just, this is Western nutrition, but yeah, it's true. We still have to have those things. So SVA also understands physical nourishment, and it really understands the role of diet in health, preventing diseases and managing diseases. Vaidya would say, my first medicine for all my clients is your food. Your proper diet is my first medicine. If you don't want to follow a good diet, thank you. Maybe when you're ready, sometime later, you can come back. But for now, I'm not going to, he would not, there were times when he wouldn't offer any herbal remedies, he said, because they're not going to work. Unless you change what you're eating, they're simply not going to work. I can give you anything, it's still not going to work. So we have a great understanding of the diet, but the diet is different. The diet is all about how to get more prana from your food, eating good food, intelligent food, not dumb food, not dead food. He said that intelligent food has lots of prana. The dumb food has some prana, but very little. Like you cooked a good meal, but then you ate it tomorrow, that good food. By the time you cooked it, by the time you ate it next day, now it's become dumb. In a few days it'll be dead, if it's not already dead. But some people, a lot of people, they start with dumb and dead food every day. Canned food, boxed food, old food, leftover food, frozen food. The prana is gone. So this is another important aspect. How do we increase prana? Eat good food. Fresh food, freshly cooked food, properly spiced. Many points about diet. And then we have to know how to pacify the three doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. We don't ignore those, but all with respect to the pranic flow. Because reality is, for most people, prana, vata, pitta, kapha, everyone has all three out of balance. It's not just one dosha. It's easy to make a mistake. I have to balance my vata. But then you'll check the pulse the next week and you'll be thinking, oh no, I need to balance the pitta. Oh no, I was wrong. Maybe I need to balance their kapha. Because you can find all three. Even at different times of day, you can become confused as to which dosha you need to work with. Reality is, for the most part, you need to take care of all three doshas simultaneously. And that's why when you have plenty of prana through proper diet, through proper sleep, through good water, through proper lifestyle, then you do help balance all three dosha. Then we talk about detoxification, safe, balanced detoxification protocols, which include which kind of toxin, because in SVA there are 4 types of toxins, not only one type called ama, which everybody knows who studies Ayurveda, but there are 4 types of ama, each has different protocols for their management, and it affects the body. Each one affects the body in a different way. Another time we'll go into the 4 types, but for now just know there are 4 types, and we have to know which type we need to address, and for what person when. Then we have to prepare the channels for the toxins to come out. You just don't start detox and you have a detox crisis unless you prepare the physical channels to release the toxins, increase the intelligence of the channels, lubricate the channels, alkalize the channels, make the channels more flexible, more intelligent. Because the channels of the body, when they're intelligent, they know what to release, they know what to take, but they become dumb over time due to toxins. So you have to restore the intelligence of the channels, and you have to pacify the reactivity of the toxins, bind the toxins. There's many, many things. This is a whole 3 months course, just toxins. But I just want to give you an idea that managing detoxification in Shakavansha Ayurveda is very detailed. Vaidya Mishra gave a talk on the 4 types of toxins at the World Ayurveda Congress in Germany in 2009, 1-hour talk on the 4 types of toxins. There was an MD in the audience. She was a German MD married to an Indian gentleman who studied Ayurveda 2 years at Banaras Hindu University. After his lecture, she approached him and said, Vaidya Mishra, it was a wonderful lecture. I learned more about these toxins in your 1-hour talk than I did in my 2-hour studies at Banaras Hindu University. So it's a very, very important aspect of Ayurveda. Shakavansha Ayurveda in general, but Shakavansha Ayurveda is taking care of the toxins without creating more problems. Because as Vaidya Mishra said, he said, I have seen more victims of improper detox than of the toxins themselves. And he has lots of cases that he talks about in his lectures about people who did improper detox, and then he had to take care of the damage done by the improper detoxification. Again, I just mentioned another point that 3Sutra Ayurveda is taught by the Charak Samhita. And then Vaidya Mishra always researched. He was a researcher. He was a Vaidya, but he was a very deep researcher. Not only in terms of making his herbal remedies, because he used his own products in his practice, but he took knowledge from all the major texts, the Charak Samhita, which is the main text, the Sushruta Samhita, the Bhagavad Samhitas, the more recent works called Bhav Prakash, and also from the modern science. So he studied all the different sources, all the texts, not simply one text. And when I met him, I had never heard of people talking about liver care. But he said, my first thing, I take care of the liver. He said, that's such an important organ, how to take care of the liver and to do it without creating a detox crisis, because the liver is a big detox factory and it holds a lot of toxins. And if you're, you know, you're an older person, you hold a lot of toxins, you can't just, oh, I'll do a liver flush, I'll take the castor, whatever they do, liver flush, cayenne pepper, lemon juice, molasses or maple syrup, whatever that thing they used to do. It's not that, he said, it's not a dumb thing. Your liver's very intelligent, and you must maintain the intelligence. You can't just, oh, I'll use milk thistle, I'll clean it with the milk thistle, Western herbology. Use milk thistle. He says, milk thistles are like taking a scrub brush to the burner, like your stove. Your stove has got caked up, you know, it's all caked up and grease and old food and everything spilled on the burner. It's like taking the scrub brush and trying to scrub it off. You're going to damage your liver if you do that. You have to do it in a very intelligent way. And how you do that depends. Some people can handle more detox than other people. So that's another big point of SVA, is how to detox the liver without creating a detox crisis. And then Vaidya Mishra had special protocols for connecting the mind with the enzymatic liver and colon system. Like if you're, you know, when your mind is, I remember one story he told was, there was a nurse who came to see him, and during her break at the hospital, she would always watch, in the break room, always watch TV. And while she was eating, she said, I can't digest anything. I have no good digestion. He says, well, what are you doing? When you're eating, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm watching TV because that's the only time I have to watch the news or whatever. And he told her, okay, you can't do that. But of course she agreed with him, but then she came back and she was still doing it. So he said again, you can't do that. Just try putting everything away, your phone, the TV, and eat. Everything was good. Just from following that simple advice, not distracting the mind's connection with the stomach, the enzymatic system. So that's always very important. So then we have another point that about SVA is Marma Point. I talked about that last week briefly, these unique energy points, which are like switches that enhance the flow of prana in the body. So Vaidya Mishra has a transdermal marma system, which he's been teaching or had taught for the better part of 15 years all over the country, how to use herbalized transdermal creams on energy points to enhance the reception, flow, and delivery of prana in the vibrational channels of the body. Because as he said, sometimes a person has some issue, sometimes it's, you know, there's like, he liked to use the analogy like, say your computer has an issue, before you call before you check the hardware, the circuitry, why don't you check the switches? Maybe there's just something wrong with the switches, the electrical system of the computer. Maybe some moisture got there, some dust. Take care of that, and maybe nothing's wrong with the hardware. In a similar way, in an analogous way, our body is like that. Our body is run by prana, and sometimes you have to take care of the hardware. You have to do surgery because the problem got too far. You have to take some heavy-duty drugs because the problem got too material. But sometimes health issues are just due to the lack of flow of prana to a specific organ and system or some area of the body. And so this transdermal marma system is very good for addressing those types of problems. And then one more point is his use of prebiotics and probiotics, both internally and externally. This is Western nutrition and Western medical science too. They know the importance of these probiotics and these friendly bacteria in our body. They're very important for our health. And they talked about those things in ancient times. And so Vaidya Mishra developed products. He has prebiotic products to help to feed the probiotics. Like sometimes you take probiotics, but they're not working because they need a prebiotic to support them. They die. And he says that's very bad because when you take these probiotics, sometimes they die, they don't flourish, they create internal toxins from the dead bacteria, the dead friendly bacteria. So he had a way of addressing the probiotics, the prebiotics with recipes, with food, and he also had external probiotics. He has a probiotic facial cream, which I'm doing right now, actually. I'm doing a month's worth of probiotic skin therapy, which I like to do once every year or two. So there are external probiotics for our skin. And then Vaidya Mishra talks about the modern day etiological factors like the EMF and the electromagnetic field, the electromagnetic, over 40 minutes?
Yeah,
Oh, we are.
I'm gonna join you, Jim.
Okay, we're at 40 minutes already?
We
Wow.
are.
I didn't
and
even think, I thought I'd finish early. I'm not even finished.
I think this is a good time to just see where we are, and I know I have some questions,
Okay.
and I want to just open it up to members of our audience. To Bobby Joe, any questions for Jim?
I do. Your last comment on the probiotics on the skin,
Mhm.
could you elaborate more on that and the reason for that? Because I always thought it was internal for the digestion. So what
No.
would be-
I actually want to repeat the question for the video, just because we're running on an iPhone this evening, so I want to just make sure that everybody can
power.
hear the question. So Bobby Joe's question is that Jim had mentioned about probiotics, and generally when we think about prebiotics and probiotics, we're thinking about the intestinal flora, the gut. And so you mentioned probiotics for the skin.
Mhm.
You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the friendly bacteria, which in the Shakavansha Ayurveda are called Yoginis, just like a yogini, it's a lady yoga practitioner. They're called Yoginis, these friendly bacteria. Because what they do, whether they're internal or external, they take something like a yoga, they take something from the environment inside, like yoginis in your colon, or even yoginis in the soil. You know, there's yoginis in the soil which take minerals into the plant. And then those yoginis in us also take those minerals into our body. They receive the pranic energy from the minerals. They have their own pranic energy, the yoginis, and they lend their own pranic energy to the thing, you know, like like zinc or magnesium that they're trying to take into our body. They lend their own pranic energy to it. So they're very intelligent. These
Now, when you say
yoginis.
yoginis, the way that usually the word yoga is yoke, union, so it's
Well, it's like a yoke with the
it's
external and the
joining-
internal.
right. So what is it in the, we know that that's the skin is the largest organ in the body, and that it's very important in Ayurveda.
Yeah, they have.
So the probiotics that are
There's-
coming into the body through the skin,
Well, our skin has yoginis,
right?
and those yoginis are interacting with the environment to take in more soma from the environment
Sure.
and convert that soma into ojas, which is the immune factor overall, including for the skin.
Sure.
If somebody has a skin disease, that means their skin immunity is low.
Right.
Means less ojas there in the skin. There's less ojas, and that's why the skin's immunity is compromised, eczema or psoriasis or something like that. So the yoginis, you know, they can die off internally and externally. Chlorine will kill your yoginis externally, you know, chlorine water in your shower. There is some replenishment happening,
Right.
you
sure,
know,
sure.
if you're eating properly, getting some internal, but it does kill some. Then you have antibiotics, and then you have birth control pills, and then you have other classes of Western drugs that may destroy your friendly bacteria. And then you have too much exposure to sunlight,
Sure.
You know,
sure.
they're delicate, and they can, of course, when you're young, you have lots of ojas.
Right,
So
yeah,
you
you can withstand a bit more.
Yeah,
there's no
you
doubt.
can, that's your
Yeah.
stability
Right, yeah.
at all levels,
Can-
mentally, emotionally, physically, in your
Absolutely.
skin, everywhere. So yoginis on the skin basically help us create more ojas, which keeps our skin looking younger and healthy. And resistant to, these inflammation.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So does the internal yoginis, is that what replenishes the external yoginis? Or
It has-
is it necessary
Yeah,
to?
it has to be both ways.
So let's repeat that question, just for the video, that, the question was, do the internal yoginis replenish the external yoginis and vice versa? Was that your question?
Yes. Or
Okay.
I don't think
perhaps
it's so much vice versa, because we really don't put,
Right.
unless we're putting something like this probiotic cream.
Sure,
But from the inside, yes, otherwise they have to come
right,
from the inside,
okay.
yeah, they have to. But, aging of the skin means the skin layers are separating. See, there's 6 layers one text says there's 7 layers, another text says there's 6 layers.
Mhm.
And when we're young, they're very close together, physically and vibrationally.
Yeah.
Those 6 layers are very close together. Water holding layer, blood holding layer, the fat holding muscle layer of the skin. So as we age, they begin to separate, skin begins to sag, they get flaky. But when your friendly bacteria diminish on the skin, then the skin begins looking drier, redder, and a drier, redder complexion. And this is my second time to use, Vaidya Mishra has a probiotic cream for the face. It actually has living one of those, Bucarius,
Sure, it has some of
it
the,
has one of
the-
those.
the friendly bacteria.
Yeah, it has herbs in it, and it has coconut, I think it has a coconut base with those friendly bacteria. It's kept in the fridge. It comes shipped on a cold ice pack next day here, because it's just like yogurt, it'll go bad, so it
So
comes.
it's just, for the face, or is it?
We have, what do we have we do have a body rejuvenation too, but there's a clay for the body. There's a soap for the
I
body.
see, okay.
But his whole system is called symbiotic skincare, because we have a prebiotic facial cleanser, which has a certain kind of mucilage, which is the food for the friendly bacteria. So we don't just put the face cream on.
Okay,
First, we put
sure.
the prebiotic on.
Sure, yeah, it's a process.
And that's got the mucilage that those friendly bacteria
Yeah,
will.
I think it would be good to, maybe focus one episode, on some of the
Skin
skincare
and beauty,
products,
yeah, it's
skin and beauty.
My favorite topic, actually.
Wonderful, I'd
Yeah.
love to do that.
Yeah, so that, we call it symbiotic skincare. We have a symbiotic soap.
Yeah, so we don't have to go into great
okay,
detail with
right.
that tonight. Did you have any other questions, Barbara Jo? Okay, great. I have a few questions, or maybe just some follow-up or clarification, Jim, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Okay. I'm wondering about, the 3Sutra Ayurveda, essentially looking at the cause, the signs and symptoms, and the therapeutics.
Mhm.
Do I have that right?
That's the first part of the sutra.
Right.
Hetu, linga, aushadhi, jnanam, the knowledge of those 3 factors.
Okay, all right. And why is it called 3Sutra Ayurveda? Are there 3 sutras, or
No,
is
there's
it
one sutra, but the main part is that first,
what I just described?
in Sanskrit, that's all one word.
I see,
Hetu,
okay.
linga, aushadhan,
Right.
jnanam, it's all
Okay.
linked, yeah.
But right now, part of your discussion tonight was to talk about SV Ayurveda and kind of compare or contrast
Mhm.
About commonly how in the West we're learning
Mhm.
Ayurveda.
Okay. Which-
But we do learn Ayurveda, just in my own limited experience, that we learn that identify the cause
Okay,
is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
It's the first thing we do is identify the cause.
all right.
So I'm wondering, I'm not seeing so much the compare and contrast here to kind of.
Well,
the way
the 3 sutras, not all those points I was starting to go into, and I got about halfway through.
Okay.
Because some of these things,
So we still have more to go.
we do.
Okay, all right, that's
Yeah.
fine, that's fine. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see from the identify the cause, looking at signs and symptoms, and just therapeutics, that sounds kind of like in
But-
line with.
Yeah, but personally, I have seen people
Okay.
learn very little about
Okay.
knowing all the different possible hay-tos,
Oh, no doubt.
removing the hay-to.
Removing it is no doubt.
You know, you sometimes have to, we take the pulse. Vaidya Mishra
Sure.
used to take the pulse first. He never asked anybody a question. He never saw a patient-client form.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, I want no prejudice.
Right, okay.
Before I
So
take the
he wanted
pulse.
to have beginner's mind. Yeah, I mean, identify the cause and remove the cause has always been
That's always
what I.
removal of the cause.
Right,
Right.
okay.
We call it hay-to vipreet, opposite of.
Sure.
Do the opposite of.
Sure, because you're treating typically with the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay. I liked what you said also about, I think you also said treat the signs and the symptoms with their opposite as well.
That's another,
Yeah, okay,
it's called linga vipreet.
Right.
Vipreet means doing the opposite of.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. I never heard of it described quite that way, so that
And
was
then
good.
there's Vaidya Vipreet, against the
Right.
disease itself.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then I like what you said about, that he gives something general and he gives something
Always,
specific.
yeah, always.
So would there always be something generally that would apply to most clients for the most part? I mean, I know you're not gonna, it's not a one size fits all strategy.
It isn't.
Ayurvedic is a personalized system of
It
healing,
is,
self-healing.
But again, his approach, how to increase reception flow of prana.
Right.
So no canned food, no dead food, no
Sure,
boxed food,
yeah, that
no
would- that would just be-
leftovers, no
Okay.
acidic foods like vinegar
Right,
or ketchup,
yeah, okay.
no large beans.
Don't look in my refrigerator, okay?
Right, don't look in your fridge, most people's fridge. He says don't eat large beans because they block the channels.
Okay,
Unless you're a hard, physical, active all day,
right.
then you can eat those large beans
You can have
because
kidney beans?
then you can do it. But like
Right.
he always like to say, if you're a Punjabi worker in the field,
Right,
you
okay.
can have those big beans.
Okay.
You'll be fine.
Sure.
You can digest them.
Sure.
Otherwise, but if you sit at a desk, don't eat those things.
Otherwise, it's a
Right.
bit challenging, there's no
Right.
doubt.
So
Okay.
he says basically don't do anything which interferes with. Last week we discussed that. So what is beneficial for your life
Right.
and what is detrimental to your life means what is beneficial for your flow of prana
Sure.
and what is detrimental for your flow of prana.
Okay, all right, yeah, I like that there's
Yeah.
gonna be some, and the emphasis is really on prana.
Mainly.
Right,
And then more
right.
specific within that.
Yeah, and then you can drill down.
Yes,
Okay.
because he
All right.
doesn't just say, oh, he's got vata massage oil, he's got a pitta massage
Sure,
oil.
sure, of course,
You know.
okay, I was just curious. And then you talked about a sutra, well, actually, was this related to the 3Sutra about, that swasta atu
Parayanam.
Okay, that, the self.
Yeah, swasta
um,
is the self, yourself.
self.
No, swasta is health. Swasta
Health,
means health.
health,
Atu means who is desperate.
right, yeah, health, so is this, the meaning of this is, he who is desperate for health
Is coming to you.
is coming to you, and if you can provide the cure, you're a master.
If
Is
you,
that what the?
if you understand this 3-sutra
Right,
and you apply the 3-sutra,
right,
then you're the highest, you're Parayanam.
right.
You're the
right.
greatest.
You are revered, okay.
You're revered.
And I think actually that word desperate is appropriate because, so many people just wait so long until they just have so many different conditions and,
Yeah,
they ignore those early symptoms and those early signs and they really are desperate.
yeah, a lot of times.
And a lot of
other
people
are
don't
desperate.
realize that they really can heal
That's true.
and they can
It's-
activate.
it's all- There's nobody that heals us except nature or God.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think I had a few more too, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Yeah.
Let's see what we got here.
Helps me to clarify my own
All right,
understanding.
you talked about this sutra is good karma. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, the sutra says it
Okay.
itself. It's called punya. If you practice this 3-sutra Ayurveda,
Right.
you're or listening or hearing or learning it, then it's punya. It's punya. There's punya is a good karma, and what's the one that means bad karma? Means papa,
Okay,
sin,
sure.
and
okay.
punya, the good karma. You're getting some, he said it's cleaning some of your bad karma if you practice
Okay,
and learn this 3-Sutra Ayurveda.
I see, okay.
The sutra says it.
Right, okay, so
Yeah.
it's right in the sutra,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
And it's eternal. It came from Brahma.
All right, let me just see if there's anything else. Now, you said that Vaidya Mishra indicated that this 3-Sutra, that if you never stray from this 3-Sutra Ayurveda, that
Right.
essentially this is almost free of error, or this is foolproof or a sure thing.
Well, you won't make mistakes. Doesn't mean not 100% people will be, because sometimes an associated point is that some people don't understand that some people think Ayurveda is going to cure everything.
Sure,
It's not the case. The texts don't say that. They say
Okay.
quite the opposite.
right,
There are diseases that are easily curable.
Yeah.
You've heard that.
of course,
There are
of
diseases
course.
that are,
Hard to cure, difficult to cure, yeah,
and
There's a-
you can help, but you can't.
sure,
Even
Right.
the texts say that.
Of course,
So
yeah.
what it means is it's a strong, powerful principle that
Yeah.
should always will help you be more successful. We can
Right.
put it that way.
okay, that if you follow these principles,
Right.
that you're
Then-
gonna do more.
But to know those principles are not a simple thing.
No,
you know?
no, it takes years of practice.
To know what all the possible hetus for
Oh, of
all the
course,
possible
yeah,
people
that's-
could,
Yeah,
and all the different types of herbs that are out there.
All
and
right,
who
it's-
should take what.
yeah, yeah.
That takes a lot of
Absolutely,
practice, yeah.
absolutely, okay. All right. Yeah, what else do I wanna say? Okay. Well, you also talk about prana, and typically the way we do think about prana in the West is we do think about it as vitality or the life force. But you also
Yeah.
refer to prana as the cosmic energy.
It's the cosmic.
Can you elaborate regarding that in terms of prana as cosmic energy?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to understand it,
Yeah.
actually. So again, what prana, it has 3 root syllables, prana.
Yeah.
Pra means specific, is the vibration, first sound of creation is
That's right. I think you shared this the last
Right,
video.
I did. The
Right.
total expansion, that is
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
When begins, and becomes om.
Right.
Om is in action. It's just moving on to itself,
Yeah.
back to the silence.
Mhm.
The ma going back. And I've heard that prana is the tendency of the unmanifest to manifest.
Right.
And it has 3 components.
Mhm.
Agni, Soma, Marut.
Yeah.
First is Marut, circulating etheric energy. Marut then becomes Agni. Marut with Om becomes Agni. Marut, Agni with Om becomes Soma.
Mhm.
And so this is the cosmic intelligence,
Right.
basically. It's the
Okay.
cosmic
Right. Okay.
life that
Right.
creates, there's one prana.
Right.
There's just one
Yeah.
in reality,
Yeah.
but in all the different things.
Right.
The Bible says, in the beginning there was the Word,
Sure.
right? And God created and God entered into those things. So that's life. It's the vibration of life.
Yeah.
When prana goes,
Right. Right.
see, we have an aura.
Mhm.
You can't see the soul, obviously. You can't even see the light of the soul, but you can see the glow of the light. Somebody with a lot of prana, and their heart lotus is open. Prana is reaching. They have there's the glow of
Yeah,
health, the glow of
of
health,
course,
that
of
glow of
course.
health.
Absolutely.
So as a person gets sick, you never see I laugh sometimes when I see the commercials, how healthy some of the drug commercials are. These people look like they're so healthy, and yet they have this horrible disease, but they don't look that way at all, right?
Well.
You can't always go by the cover of the book, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
so it's that
Well,
very
you can tell a lot from the cover of the book.
yeah. So prana is our ability to breathe. It's
Yeah, that was the next question.
that's-
It's not just the breath,
no,
it is the
it's your
intelligence.
ability
of
to
breathing.
breathe.
Right,
Because when prana goes, you can't see, because prana is taking in more prana.
right.
We are set up to receive prana from the environment. And the
Right.
environment means our food, our water, our air,
Of course, yeah.
other people, everywhere. Prana, prana, prana. We receive it to keep ourselves alive and healthy.
Right.
Um, That's why devitalized foods are killing us. You know, they don't have no prana.
Yeah.
And that's one of our main sources of prana is what we eat.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. It's
So-
so true.
But you know, different food had different proportion of Agni, Soma, Marut.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, yeah.
So you need all three. But
Right, and in some ways that they sound very, I know they're different words in vata, pitta, kapha,
but they create vata, pitta,
but
kapha.
essentially you've got soma, which is kapha.
Soma
I mean,
creates.
if I were to,
yeah.
if I were to
Soma
equate it to a
first
dosha,
creates earth.
and then you have marut, which is vata.
First air is the elements, and then
Right.
the dosha.
Right.
So from Marut, air and space, from Agni, fire, which stays as Agni, and then from Soma, earth and water, and they become semi-vibrational dosha. They're not a pure vibration. They're
I
not
see.
cosmic. They're in the body.
Right, okay,
You eat a chili pepper. There's no pitta in the chili pepper.
right,
Pitta's in you.
okay,
Agni's in the chili pepper.
all right, I
You
see,
drink milk, good milk.
yeah.
It has soma. Doesn't have kapha.
Mhm.
And people use the terms vata time, pitta time, kapha time a day.
Right,
There's no vata, pitta, kapha out there in time,
all right,
but there's Agni, Soma, Marut that affects the vata, pitta, kapha
right,
in time.
okay.
So it's very, that's
So you're saying there's Soma, Agni, and Marut in the universe, and it's the elemental forces, and then you're saying that in the physiology is Vata, Pitta, Kapha?
Yeah, they're
Is that what you're
the
indicating?
governing.
The manifestation of those.
Yeah, in the physiology.
In the physiology,
In the
okay.
physiology.
Okay, I see,
Right, they create the dosha.
right,
And they keep the doshas in balance when we're receiving lots of prana.
right.
See,
the-
you won't just, doshas are an impurity, you won't, as you know.
Yeah,
You want just enough doshas, they need to be there just enough to do their job.
mm-hmm,
But you don't want just enough prana, you want lots of prana.
right.
But you need a
yeah.
balance, you can't just eat, Agni is in chili. You don't want to eat chili all day, you'll get a lot of prana of Agni, but you need more soma to go with it.
Yeah, yeah, it has to be, well,
Yeah,
you
you
also
know.
talked about in pacifying the doshas, because in Ayurveda we talk a lot about pacifying the doshas.
Always, yeah.
But you said that pacifying the doshas, but with respect to the pranic flow,
Right.
that we must take care of the three simultaneously. Essentially, you're working on balancing all three.
Essentially, I've seen with Vaidya Mishra many consultations, and he goes into which subdoshas in the priority of imbalances. All three out of balance. One time in my home, he said, give this person the Vata Pitta diet.
Okay.
And that she left, and I said, he smiled, and he goes, I know you're gonna ask me. You've never seen me say, give a Vata Pitta diet or any kind of diet like that. And I said, no, I haven't. He said, because she doesn't have any kapha imbalance in her. Out of hundreds of people I saw with him, he said, she doesn't have any kapha imbalance.
Oh.
So I can do that.
Okay,
But everybody else we've seen, and
Right.
most people you will see, it's, in different degrees of all three imbalances of different subdosha.
right, okay, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So, he says you need you need to balance all of them
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously. He said you never create, in Ayurveda there's a principle, do not, to solve one problem or one imbalance, don't
Sure.
create another imbalance.
Right,
You
okay,
don't create another imbalance to
Okay.
solve one. That's
Yeah.
not Ayurveda.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. You have to be cautious of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And so many different types of people,
Oh, of course.
You have to, one size will not fit all.
Sure.
Like he made 40 facial creams,
right.
and some of them, anybody can use them, others
Of
are more
course.
specific.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of the general and specific that you
Yeah,
talked about
like we
earlier.
have a
that
cream.
everyone gets a general and then there's a specific.
Always, like
Right.
everyone,
When you're talking about therapeutics.
follow the laws of nature.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's just, some things are just, they're given,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
but don't just,
but don't do it robotically.
don't do anything wrong.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
You talked about the liver and the importance of his emphasis on,
The liver?
the first thing I take care of is the liver,
Mhm.
and to do that without creating a
Not-
toxin crisis.
Detox crisis of the liver.
Detox crisis. So just speak a little bit about that.
Well, our liver makes our blood. We know it has 5 intelligent flames, one for each of the elements,
Right,
to transform. So basically, we eat food, it becomes rasa,
Yeah, no,
Right?
I guess I want to emphasize more on a detox crisis.
Okay,
Like,
yeah. Well, we're
give
doing.
me, give me an example.
We're doing two things at once. One is maintaining the health of the liver. There's pacification. We also do pacification.
Sure.
Shamana.
Yeah,
So, for example, when I met Vaidya Mishra, he said, your liver's very hot.
right.
I'm not going to do, only detox I'm going to do is have you apply my liver clay, a special herbalized clay over your liver, leave it on 7 minutes and wash it off twice a week.
Yeah,
Don't do more than twice a week because
Right.
we don't want to detox too fast.
yeah,
But every day you must put my deglyceride licorice DGL cream to cool your
I
liver,
see, so more
to
cooling.
do shamana therapy
Okay.
for your bronchial
Right,
pitta, to calm
right,
it down.
Okay, yeah, but you don't want to act too quickly, too fast, that sort of thing.
No, because
Yeah.
it holds lots of toxins. Where are they
Right.
going to go?
Yeah, yeah.
They're just going to go back to the blood, put a burden on your kidneys,
Sure.
go somewhere else, go to your brain, go to your
Right,
heart.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
go to your gallbladder and,
Okay.
you know.
Right, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I think we're at time now,
Yeah.
and I'm running out of battery too, so I gotta adjust that. Awesome, so we're gonna continue next week, and, any
I'll
final
finish,
words?
well,
Any
I'll finish up.
Final words for the video, Jim?
I will finish up next week. I will finish with the points of divergence or some differences, subtle difference between SVA and mainstream Ayurveda. Because I went through about half of those points. I'll finish those points, and then I'll choose another topic for the rest of the talk that evening. I'm not sure what yet, but I think what
It'll be a surprise.
I think what I will talk on is this concept of the soul and the light of the soul and the heart lotus, something we call the heart
It's
lotus.
gonna be fun.
And it will be very interesting, and it just puts the emphasis that, you know, the simple definition of Ayurveda is swasta iti swastaha, being established in your own self. That is your simple
Beautiful.
definition of health, not of Ayurveda, but of health. Swasta iti swastaha. Then there's more elaborated definitions. But it all starts with, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about the soul, what it is, its role in our life, our health, and Shakavansha Ayurveda, it's very important to talk about what we call the light of the soul. It has qualities, it has properties. The soul doesn't have any properties, but the soul has a light called the Atma Guna or the Sattva Guna, and it has 6 properties.
Well,
And we'll talk about that
we'll
tomorrow.
look forward to that. That'd be awesome. Join us next Wednesday live, same time, around 7 p.m. And signing off for now. Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you, and Noreen, and
Absolutely.
thanks all those who are
The
watching.
Ayurveda Cafe with Jim Pace today. Thanks so much.
So, do we want to start at 7?